Posted by user Zarina Blue. Shady landlord loses his fancy truck. And just about everything else. TLDR, landlord threatens my child, also tries a scam he has been running on his tenants for years, on me, and ends up losing everything for it. This is going to be a very long, but considering I ruined this guy's life. Not an exaggeration. Location, the Deep South. 2007 to 2008. My ex-husband and I have always gotten along very well, and we have, at the time of this story, a 7-year-old daughter. We have always lived near each other for convenience sake and have on occasion even lived in the same house after divorcing. So I was thrilled when the people across the street from him sold their place, and apparently it was going to be for rent. I had known the folks across the street, nice people, and had even been in the house a time or two, so when I showed up with my other half to look the place over, I kinda knew what we would be getting. The landlord was working on the house when we pulled up. We had gone out to eat before this, and so I know he was unaware he was talking to someone who knew the people who had lived there and been in the house. His big old dually was in the drive, with his company name stenciled on it. He meets us in the garage and immediately starts lying. He told me this was his family home and he was fixing it up, but there were a lot of memories there, and his kids had grown up in that house. I realized he was adding value. I kept my mouth shut because it was right across the street from my ex-husband, and it was literally the bus stop for the school for my daughter. He continued to lie and I kinda tuned him out. The place was a little worse for wear: dirty, gross carpet, chipped paint. I made a comment on a broken light switch and he told me he was having a cleaning crew come through and clean up the place and having everything painted and the carpet redone. The price was a little high, but once again I really wanted it, and it wasn't a nightmare high, just $200 over what I was expecting. I had a small Australian Shepherd, so first month's rent, last month's rent, and pet deposit. $1,250 for each one. So about 2 weeks later it was move-in day. I should have known something was up when the key was left in a combo box on the door. We had paid through a service, so he had the money, and we had the key. And a mess. He had done literally nothing except replace a set of rotted outdoor steps that he probably had to for liability purposes. We dragged out the digital camera and started taking pictures. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom with a partial basement. We took over 1,100 pictures. Here are some highlights. Ketchup smeared on the kitchen walls and floor, nothing in there had been cleaned. The fridge was awful. Had what smelled like hair gel rubbed into it in the dining room and outside the front bathroom door. The fireplace literally had soot covering all of it and up to the ceiling. The reason for all the non-working lights became apparent at the point he kept it dim for showings. Garage full of trash. The partial basement, which we hadn't seen, because that where he had a big saw set up and wasn't really a selling point for us. Mold. All the mold. So I called him up and basically said, "What the hell?" And he replied that money and keys had already exchanged hands, and if I had a problem I needed to put in a maintenance request. He said, "I don't remember it being that bad, sounds like you made a mess moving in." Okay, so now I knew exactly how shitty of a person I am dealing with. Put in a maintenance request about the mold. Went out and bought all the bleach, other cleaning supplies, and a carpet cleaner. I am a military brat who lived in base housing. I know how to clean. And we got to work. It took 2 days of 4 adults, my ex and a friend came over to help, to get the place passable. We even changed out the blinds. They were broken and dangerous. During this, the landlord comes over to look at the mold, and I kid you not, grabs a roll of my paper towels and my bleach spray and starts wiping the mold off the walls. He had just walked into the garage, grabbed some cleaning stuff I had down in the garage, and I found him about halfway through his cleaning job. That's all he did. Fast forward 3 months. Time for an inspection. Okay, he tells me he will be there tomorrow at 8 a.m. He shows up at 6:30 p.m. Demands to be let in. I let him in and he starts taking pictures of dishes in the sink, dinner was still on the table, and lecturing me about cleaning up when I cook. So in front of him, I pulled out my digital camera and took one of him taking a pic of dishes for dinner with dinner still on the table and a time date stamp. He wanted to go through drawers in my bedroom. I laughed at him. Didn't hear from him again till move out time. If you thought I was staying there longer than a year, then you are crazier than I was when I rented that place. He sent me a move out checklist. Professional steam cleaning and white glove clean of the entire house. New pine straw for landscaping. All rooms need to be repainted wheat. When we moved in, the bathroom was literally turquoise, so we got to work. Steam cleaned, white glove clean, etc. Then took another 1,000 pics. He walks through and is pissed. He even ran a white rag on the top of the ceiling fan. He snatched the keys out of my hand and told me to expect to hear from him in 10 days about the deposit. Home? That doesn't sound good. 2 weeks later I get a bill. For $3,750. For more professional steam cleaning. HVAC cleanout. Apparently, we didn't use the right brand of wheat. Oh yes we did. 2 things I haven't disclosed. I have a bad habit of recording bad people or just to see ya, and my mom is a landlord in the next state. She is the good kind who never was able to make money at it. If people told her they couldn't afford to pay her because they needed the money to feed their children, well, my mom usually gave them money. So glad she got out, but my mom was very familiar with the laws and had looked a few things up about my landlord. So I grabbed my little recorder and called him. He owns a real estate business, his side is rental stuff, and his wife's and grown daughters bought and sold houses. His oldest daughter picks up and transfers me to him. It gets ugly fast and he tells me that I must have let my Australian Shepherd pee in the vent grates, what the hell, and that the way I take care of my daughter would be very interesting to CPS. He can help me work out a payment plan, but pretty soon we would be getting into collections territory. At one point he actually says that all tenants are liars. Nice. About 20 minutes of being threatened. I call my mom back. TBH, I am pretty damn shook up. CPS. For what? So my mom tells me to pretend like I am playing along and ask for an itemized receipt. Tell him your mom is going to cover it and tell him your mom needs it before turning over the money. I had 10 minutes after I asked. On my end. The professional steam cleaner was a friend of mine who had a business and gave me a discount. HVAC was a scam. The company he listed belonged to his brother-in-law, was defunct, and out of another state. Since I had before, after, and his new listing pictures, I knew he hadn't hired anyone to do HVAC cleaning. The vents were painted to the wall. In all the pics. We saved our paint receipts and I actually had pics of us painting. You can see the right brand and color clear as day. I called his business and told his daughter that I would be taking him to court. She obviously was unaware of what a shit her father was, because when I told her, "No one threatens my little girl," she didn't know what I was talking about. So I put her on speakerphone and played a recording of her dad threatening to have CPS come visit, if I didn't pay up, and she made it most of the way through before asking me to turn it off. And then she put me on hold to get her mom, his wife. She tried to reason with me, and I backed up the tape to the part where he talks about what happens to kids in the foster system and played it. She told me they would get back to me. They actually did. The mom and eldest called me on speakerphone and apologized. They told me how the business was divided and how they normally don't deal with rental stuff. I told them it was fine, but I was still taking him to court. Time for court. We ended up in arbitration. I showed up with 2 laptops, for before and after, proof of his fake HVAC crap, a stack of literal receipts, him committing a crime by threatening to falsely call CPS, and a pretty good working knowledge of renter law in that state. At one point the arbitrator asked me if I was a paralegal. He had a picture of dirty dishes and stories about how I lived like a pig. I pulled up the pic of the same sink of dishes, with dinner in the foreground, time and date stamped. The arbitrator actually asked, "Did you expect her to do the dishes before she ate her dinner?" Even the woman taking notes for the arbitrator was grossed out when I showed them the ketchup and basement mold pics. Did you know you can get 3 times what you ask for in a rental dispute, depending on your state? Yeah, You can. I did. The arbitrator used the word appalling when describing the landlord's behavior. When I went out in the hallway afterwards, there was a young couple there asking the clerk if the landlord was available yet. Apparently, they were waiting for their turn at arbitration. I asked them if their case was HVAC related. Sure enough, it was. I pulled out all the paperwork I had about it and handed it to them with my number. Actually got several calls from his other tenants. He had been running that scam a while, and these kids I had handed the paper to, had looked up every house on the landlord's website and went door to door warning them. Smart. I hadn't thought of that. Meanwhile, my mother was filing a complaint with everyone she could think of, because he had his business listed as a suite. Which turned out to be a P.O. box. Huge no-no. Your business must be a location that can be served by the courts. A year later I saw a truck with his logo drive past. But it wasn't the dually, it was an older F-150. So I looked him up in the county clerk's records. Well, first, it seems he got divorced. And cleaned out. The house, big truck, everything went to her. Then she sued him for the business. He got to keep the name, and she took everything else. I looked up the realty website using her maiden name to search. Her and the eldest daughter were using her maiden name and had a whole new web page and setup. Also, my mom got notice that her complaint was being addressed and he had his license suspended and a huge fine to get reinstated. My mom kept an eye on the records for home deeds in the area, and all but 2 of his properties were sold at auction. So, let's sum up. He had to pay me 3 times what I asked for. Lost his big money-making scam. Lost his wife. Lost his houses. Lost his truck. Lost his license for a while. No regrets. If you liked the story, press the like button, and leave a comment below. You can upvote this story by pressing the link in the description. If you want to hear more stories, hit the subscribe button, and press the bell icon to be alerted when a new video is posted.